I'd like to begin by first marking 2 anniversaries that speak to the heart of this debate. First was Sunday, which marked 3 years since 72 lives were cruelly cut short in the Grenfell Tower fire. That night will forever be seared in my mind. The blazing inferno of the tower, the live-stream videos of victims reciting prayers before they passed away, friends and families desperately searching for loved ones, the firefighters exhausted, shell-shocked, having done everything they could, and the multiracial working-class community coming together to support one another. What happened at Grenfell was a tragedy, but it wasn't a natural disaster. It was avoidable and foreseeable. Residents raised concerns, but they weren't listened to. They weren't listened to because they were working class, because many were migrants, and because the community was majority black and brown. That's why the structures of power neglected them, exploited them, and discarded them. And it shames this government that 3 years on, survivors are still living in temporary accommodation, and 56,000 people are still living in homes wrapped in unsafe, flammable cladding. The second anniversary, Mr. Deputy Speaker, which also speaks to this topic, is on Monday. That day marks 72 years since HMS Windrush arrived in the UK. Black Britons came to the UK and helped rebuild this country after the war, and we know how they were repaid. A government determined to stoke division and target migrants created the racist, hostile environment and had black and brown people detained, deported, and denied of their rights. Again, Mr. Deputy Speaker, the structures of power neglected black and brown people, exploited them, and discarded them. And even now, compensation totalling just £360,000 has been paid to just 60 victims of this scandal. So let's call it what it is: systemic racism. And the disproportionate deaths of black and brown people from coronavirus is a third striking example of this. The evidence is clear. People with Bangladeshi background face double the risk of dying from COVID-19 compared to white people, while people from Chinese, Indian, Pakistani, Caribbean, and other black ethnicity backgrounds face a 10% to 50% higher risk of death. This isn't some innate vulnerability of black and brown people. It's not something natural, it's social. It's because black and brown people are disproportionately poor, and that makes you more likely to have ill health. Disproportionately in overcrowded housing, and therefore more likely to spread this deadly disease, and disproportionately in jobs exposed to the virus, from being overrepresented in the NHS to being in the low-paid, often precarious, frontline key worker roles. Again, Mr. Deputy Speaker, what we see is a system that neglects black and brown people, exploits black and brown people, and all too tragically discards black and brown people. These are neither discrete incidents or aberrations from the norm. They are reminders of what is painfully clear to many people outside of this chamber, that race and class are the dividing lines between two very different Britons. The people of Grenfell Tower lived and died in the shadow of immense wealth in Kensington and Chelsea. The Windrush scandal exposed the second-class citizenship for black and brown people in Britain today and the contempt with which migrants are treated. And the coronavirus pandemic has revealed the fatal inequities that are rife within our society and are truly a matter of life and death. This systemic racism isn't incidental, it has a history. And thanks to the action of Black Lives Matter campaigners, light is being shed on this history. It's a history of colonialism and conquest, of empire and enslavement, and of inequality and exploitation. It's a history of the rich and powerful using their influence to maintain control and to spread hate. Today, their newspapers might run stories spreading fear about migrants arriving at our shores. Tomorrow, it might be about Muslims, or young black men, or gypsies, or Roma. And it's done with the same purpose: to divide the people, to deflect blame, and to protect their rotten system. That's why they target minorities, and we see it with the threat to the trans community at the moment. Mr. Deputy Speaker, systemic racism is causing black and brown people to disproportionately die from coronavirus. This needs to be urgently addressed with workplace risk assessments, PPE and tests to everyone who needs them. But it needs deeper change too. We need to tackle the system that drives these inequalities that empowers people in this chamber, in Parliament, and the billionaire press barons who whip up fear and exploit and discard working class people, black, brown and white alike. We need to tackle this system and, in its place, build a society that has equality and freedom at its heart. That's the call of socialism, and it's more timely than ever. Thank you.